Broncos country, what's going on? Hope you guys are having a fantastic Victory Monday, shall I say. Hopefully I get to rock this shirt quite a bit after Broncos wins this season. Just got this in the mail from NFL Shop. This is awesome. But what is today's video about? It's about one of our former NFL quarterbacks that has become very prominent, not only in private coaching, but in the media as well. Jordan Palmer, talking about Bo Nix. I'll link his video in the description, but one of my biggest takeaways from this video that he did on Bo Nix recently was the player that he said kind of reminded him of Bo Nix in some ways, of how he was being overlooked in the draft process, about how a lot of his strengths were just being minimalized for some reason. Maybe it's because you didn't really see the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson moments all the time. Maybe it was something like that. But you know who Jordan Palmer comped Bo Nix to? Not a direct one-for-one, but did compare him. None other than Rookie of the Year CJ Stroud. A pretty interesting comparison, if you ask me, and I'll get into some of the similarities between the two coming out. There was a lot of doubt, I think, with CJ Stroud last year. I wasn't one of them, but you heard a lot of them talking about, well, he's from Ohio State. He plays in that system. How Ohio State quarterback has ever been good? Sounds similar to the University of Oregon. When I went back to look at CJ Stroud's NFL draft profile, I found one statistic that was really interesting, and that was average yards per attempt. And I went ahead and brought up Bo Nix's because I was curious, well, what was his average yards per attempt? And you can see Bo Nix here at the far right, the average 9.59. We'll just round that up to say 9.6. Overall, fifth in the country, ahead of pretty much every quarterback that went ahead of him in this year's NFL draft outside of Jaden Daniels, who was just throwing bombs at LSU all season last year at an insane 11.66 yards per attempt. But you know what CJ Stroud's average yards per attempt were at Ohio State? 9.6. I kid you not. Absolutely crazy. And when you get into, let me transition over here. When you get into his NFL draft profile here on NFL.com with Lance Zierlein, let me go ahead and change this up so you guys can see this a little bit better. Look at what I highlighted right here. The question is, with CJ Stroud, how quickly he will acclimate outside of the Ohio State scheme. Sound pretty familiar to the Oregon Ducks, right? Yeah, and I heard a lot of friends telling me, CJ Stroud last year, CJ Stroud, what Ohio State quarterback has ever done good in the NFL? You know, Justin Fields didn't turn out to be very good. You had guys in the past that just kind of flamed out. And Ohio State quarterbacks are always going to be great because of the high-end weapons that they have around him. And it's a very QB-friendly offense. It's not anything too crazy, not anything too complicated, which I thought was funny because you hear all the same things about the University of Oregon. Well, they have athletes. Again, that's why CJ Stroud was able to put himself in his last year in college football into the Heisman finalist consideration. It wasn't because he was just throwing Jane Daniel bombs all the time. He was just getting the ball to his playmakers. Granted, he had I believe he had a higher average depth of target compared to Bo Nix, but similar type of theme where, hey, it's not sexy stuff all the time. It's not NFL amazing throws, threading the needle, having that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes moment every single drive. No, a lot of it's just making the smart play. It's not sexy, but it moves the ball down the field, right? And Oregon quarterbacks, which Oregon quarterback has ever been amazing at the NFL level? I mean, Joey Harrington or Marcus Mariota are probably the best two to come out of there. And, you know, it's gimmicky, right? You heard a lot of the same things, but they talked about with CJ Stroud. Overall, I think he has a good release. He's able to extend plays, get outside the pocket, but ultimately will attack with throws down the field rather than just diverting to his scrambling ability. And the most naturally accurate top-tier quarterback in the 2023 draft class, I would say that Bo Nix was that same thing for the 2024. and both Heisman finalists their last year. And a lot of that was just kind of minimalized their performance because of, oh, this is the talent they have around them. This is the offense that they played in. Oh, well, who does Ohio State really face outside of Michigan that's consistently good, right? As soon as they play the SEC schools, they have trouble. It's really funny to me because I feel like when Alabama quarterbacks come out, even though they're loaded with talent, you rarely hear them and their accomplishments and their positives ever nullified the way that you have seen Pac 12 and Big Ten quarterbacks criticized for their positives in a strange way. Showed maturity as a game manager. Weaknesses for CJ Stroud right here. Okay, this is a little bit different than Bo Nix. Okay, but a lot of it has to be mechanically, being more consistent, inconsistent activating the lower body torque on his drive throws. They said it a little bit differently for Bo Nix on his profile, but it's very similar in terms of he'll short arm things. He doesn't exactly have a big step in with some of his throws down the field. He needs to activate that lower body a little bit more, but did a better job of taking care of the ball, which I thought was pretty interesting compared to CJ Stroud. And then when we look at, well, before I go over that, NFL comp, you see this, Jared Goff, very interesting, kind of off-putting a little bit in retrospect, but viewed kind of more as a game manager coming into the NFL. But he's a much more dynamic tape. His accuracy is what stands out on tape. I think with Bo Nix, that's the same way. Now, looking at Bo Nix, I've done a video on this before. Tony Romo, NFL comp. Strange to see a round 2 projection on him in retrospect, especially because I think Tony Romo, if people knew how he would turn out, he would be a first-round pick. But it is what it is. We can get to some of the weaknesses. Tends to short arm, okay? A lot of that, needs to do a better job of throwing receivers away from coverage, all those different things. But I wanted to highlight this play as well, or this part as well in the paragraph. Some of his gaudy production has been driven by the Oregon's offense's design, but his talent clearly stands out, okay? And then lastly, sources tell us, this is from an NFC area scout, he's so much more confident than what he was when he came in. The only thing you worry about a little bit is how will he respond when he's outside the comfort of that Oregon offense? Does he play with the same confidence? Very interesting. Very interesting how you hear a lot of the same things with Bo Nix and CJ Stroud. And I had never really thought about that, comparing the two, until Jordan Palmer brought it up in his video. And again, he didn't say that Bo Nix is going to go out and break rookie records this year, but he brought up CJ Stroud to say that I think, and again, this is what we've heard from former NFL quarterbacks, is I think a lot of the draft expert community or NFL community is sleeping on Bo Nix because, as Sean Payton would put it, he's like a good golfer. It's just pretty. The swing, the drive, it's great, consistent, and again, has all the production that you'd want to see coming out of college football into the NFL. But for some reason, there's narratives outside of SEC football sometimes, I feel, that there's always a reason to justify why these guys should have been less productive elsewhere or something like that. I don't know. I don't get it. But what did you think about some of the similarities between CJ Stroud and Bo Nix? I want to know from you guys. Does this change your thinking on him in any way? Does it raise your expectation? We'll just have to see. But thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I highly encourage you to go check out Jordan Palmer's film breakdown of Bo Nix. Showed a lot of great things and why he's such a good fit for the Sean Payton offense. So I'll be back later. Thanks again so much. Smash that like and subscribe on the way out. Go Broncos.